I remember about third grade. My grandpa got me up really early, got in the truck, and says, "Buck, we're going hunting." So I remember getting up early, third grade, going hunting. And I had just gotten a new knife that week. My Rambo knife, I call it. And boy, I strapped my belt on and put my knife on there. And there we are, driving in the dark pickup truck, Montana. And I remember him going to one place and looking out in the fields. I didn't know what he was doing or looking for. But eventually he had saw something. So he hopped out and he goes walking out towards the field there, and I kind of hop out and he like, shh. And I stayed way behind him. I stayed behind I knew enough already at that point that it's going to be loud. Stayed behind him. And so I kind of just watched, and boom! Boy, I didn't have time to plug my ears, and then he started walking over after waiting like probably a minute or two. I just watched it for a minute or two. Like, what's he doing? I wanted to go running over. But anyways, we eventually walk up to it, and he does this thing I remember, a little traumatizing. I'll let it bleed out. And he looked real sad with it, because he didn't have his knife. And I say, hey, I got my knife here, and he needs to cut it, and usually he cut it at the neck and all this stuff, and he's sad. Two things: he just procured some game for the family, but he had this level of respect. It didn't look like as much sport. And I remember thinking, oh, I got my Rambo knife, I'll save the day. So I remember breaking it out. Oh, well, no, I think he actually, hey, Buck, let's see your Rambo knife. Yep. And then I pulled it out, and I was beaming, shining that day. I got to get him to use my Rambo knife, a real hunting knife now. So I watched him he looked at my knife, and he put it to the neck there, and he starts to go for it. Nothing, just doing like a pushing your finger on rubber. Doing, it didn't even do anything. So I remember he handed me that knife back. Says, Buck, don't you ever hand me a dull knife again in your life. Boy, I was in big trouble, I could just tell. And so I seen him looking around. I'm wondering what he's doing. He grabs this old round field rock, right? And he's, in the field, they're kind of bubbled up in the field, and digs it out, found this round field rock, and looks over about a couple feet away. There's a jaggedy, shaggy rock poking out, some bushes around it. He took that one rock, and boom! Hits that other rock, and a big old flake, triangular shaped right there, flaked right off, And he grabbed that little flake and put it up to the thing and made the hole in the first incision. And then he borrowed my knife back and kind of used that same rock to sharpen it a little bit and finish the job, And he used it for the gutting too, that sharp rock that he chipped away. And, really that was the setup. That changed my whole life. That's my whole outlook. And even to this day, sometimes I'm out in the field, I don't pack a bunch of stuff with me. I just kind of wander around and see what the land has to offer. And there's this thing where we, as a native people here in Montana, we have this respect for the land that if you take something, sometimes you leave something, like tobacco. But I think the best way you would think about it is there's ways to maintain nature and take some bad trees out, and that'll help the good trees be more fruitful. And so there's different ways you can actually help nature by using its resources. And really, knowing what to look for and what everything has to offer you. So there's this idea here in Montana. If you pack it in, you pack it out, and to me that's very cultural. You also hear we'll mostly see people finding use in anything. Oh, I'm keeping that. I'm gonna do something or another with it, this random car part, whatever. And we do that here because we're resourceful, and the tribes in Montana were really resourceful. My tribe, the Flathead, specifically, they're called that because the hand sign, you put the hand up to your forehead, and it signifies that top braid. We call that the top knot. It's kind of come around because of old scalping days, but we call it a taunt braid. So it's kind of like I tell the kids, that's a come at me, bro, braid up there on the top. So our hand sign is Flathead because we take that braid and poof it really big, really up poof like a pompadour, and then braid it into our other two braids. And so we could be recognized at a distance as being that people, the Bitterroot Salish, also known as the Flathead, because of that hand sign. Well, in our tribe, we're a little special in that we're both plains and plateau. So you get higher up in the mountains and it plateaus out, and we're kind of in the in-between. So we can run into the eastern Montana plains area, and I like to joke around and say, fight it out with the big boys. Because, back then war wasn't like, the purpose wasn't to kill the enemy, it was to gain honor, and counting coup. That's where I get my hits with the stick name, was to count coup on somebody. And it's a more honorable warfare. It shows you could have got him if you wanted to, but yeah. So our tribe specifically, plains, plateau, both cultures mixed in. So you see a lot of buffalo, and you'll see a lot of basketry and stuff. As a good example, salmon and buffalo, both. I think that's how our tribe was, kind of what made us special. got to meet a lot of elders in my lifetime, and had a lot of elders visit me when I used to live in the teepee. And I remember hearing this story, and I didn't connect it to what I was doing at the time, but staying in the woods, living in a teepee, working on art projects, with nature stuff. But I heard that young men and women, they would sometimes test themselves and try to do a camp away from the main camp. They would bring some supplies they thought they needed and try their best to be self-sufficient using skills they learned. Well, up until the age of 12, both boys and girls learned the basics of survival, with boys learning, like culturally women's work, I guess you would say, such as preparing food, sewing, hide work, gathering, and girls learning culturally like men's work, such as hunting, fishing, trapping, weapon making, but they were never too far from the main camp, This is after the age of 12, or maybe in their 20s, like I was in my 20s at this time. Far enough, out that if there was enemy tribes or dangers of animals or anything nearby, you could be far enough to, be like a warning system, and also close enough, to make it back to camp and tell somebody. So it was allowed to go on, they had, they believed in their youth, and I guess you would call our educational system. So, they were good in that way to go test themselves, and sometimes new resources, right, were found. And all this, basically benefits the whole while developing the individual, and helps the person to learn his or her relationship basically with the people, with the land, with the waterways. And and I wouldn't tell people to go off and go camping by yourself. Boy, we have a rule here, always tell people where you're gonna go, and uh, bring someone with you, you know what I mean? Never go in the woods alone. And that's a pretty good rule to go by. But like this is a camp away from main camp, and it had a real use to the people, and it, like I said, it helps the individual really test themselves. But we all learn eventually, no matter what era we're in. The modern era, even right now, we all have to learn the ways of the land and the water, learn the ways that those things have shown us. And we need to remember that respect thing. And I think you develop that naturally living here. A respect for the land. And you see people move here and they own it right away, And that's a good way to be in our way. And I don't want to speak for just like all natives or even everybody in my tribe. I'm just going by stuff I heard, that I heard a story once about how in the future, and this was taking place a long time ago, that people are going to need to learn about the flathead ways, and that's why our tribe never fought with the cavalry, or anything. As a matter of fact, our tribe sent delegates to Washington, my wife's family they went to Washington to work on treaty rights, and to us, treaty meant no war, so it was very important because that's what we always learned is never to fight. The newcomers, we would call them then, but to teach them how to be human beings, I think that's a good thing. And like I said, I think the land and its lessons it teaches with the seasons, I think you end up learning how to become a human being. Uh, that bone is bison bone. We always use everything from the bison, even the fat. Even the scraps can be used. We use the ribs for hide scrapers. You can make spear and knife points out of the forearms, shields, and plenty of crafts with the hide. The hides are huge. Yep, everything. I like making little kind of smaller. Well, kind of how it works is you start with a spear point, right? And you have your spear, and because it's bone, it'll eventually break, even though you can harden it with some grease and a fire and a little heat there, and then but really it eventually breaks. That's why archaeologists they don't know how often we use bone for like our kitchenware and stuff, and buffalo being the best, but you can still use real dense bones from other large animals. But yeah, you would start out maybe a spear if you get a good break on a bone, a good lateral break, and then you can once that spear breaks, you have two pieces. Well, the bone itself, all those pieces get used up. But as an example, the spear might break, and then you have a knife and a awl, and maybe your awl might break eventually, and goes from paring knife to from spear point to knife to paring knife to awl to all the way down to a needle. And by the time you get to where the needle breaks, well, then you're kind of just left with dirt. And archaeologists don't find that stuff because it's used till it's gone. And we native people, we still have that in our thought processes. I think going to use it and until it's gone. Yeah. And you wouldn't want to bring, like, say you would use flint, grab some sinew and make a flint knife, and that would be like your hunting knife, for out there and doing the field stuff. But you would definitely need like more bone tools for once the meat is quartered up and taken off the bone. You would use your bone tools because it doesn't leave rock chips. And some tribes use obsidian. That's volcanic glass. That could be dangerous if something went wrong with that stuff. But so as a rule, I like to tell people, use your flint for your work and stuff. And we have this stuff called chert here in Montana, but it's basically flint too with sediment. But yeah, you can pretty much do all of it with no metal tools. And I've tried it both ways where I'm using metal tools and rock tools. I find metal tools and stuff, drills and things work really fast and accurate if you get it right and stuff. But stone tools leave because it takes longer, it leaves more time for the things to happen, I would say. Stuff that you wouldn't notice if you just quickly working one and getting it done. Let's see. I'm going to start cleaning so you get the point. Keep cleaning. You know, this way you're feeling with your hands and sensing the smallest little grooves and things. And you know, it just is finer work when you're done. If I was to use files and drills, my awl might not be as smooth. I would have to get sandpaper, you know, after the fact, and then go from a heavy grit to a lighter grit. Boy, with stone tools, that thing's almost polished when you're done anyway. So I like to tell people to remember, everything you need is out here. You just gotta know what you're looking for, you know. And there's dangers too, but you gotta know what those are too. Now I'm using a rock to flatten it out and just kind of keep it uniform, I guess. Yeah, if you can do woodwork with stone tools, I mean, really, it's just a matter of patience and finding the right rock and the right stick. So I like to find a stick that's got no knots, and I like to look for hawthorn and any sort of berry, um, because it's strong. But we don't really have hardwoods here necessarily, so those fibrous kind of woods like that work really well for, you know, trying to do your woodwork stuff. And mostly you're just straightening sticks for bows and bending sticks for shields, and you know, smaller projects. But like a bow would be a bigger project. What I'm looking for is there's two centers when I make a bow, and you can make fun kid bows like pretty easy like this. You find a stick, and you know how there's a big end and a skinny end. You tell the student, you shave down the big end to match the size of the little round end, and kind of leave that little round end round. And if you want to make a more teenager or an adult bow, you want a big enough of a tree, sarvisberry or something, you know, um, that's big around, maybe 3 inches, 4 inches in diameter, and you still have a bigger end and a littler end. But once you carve it down to match the littler end, you carve down the little end to look like a bow, and then you take the big end and carve that down to match it just by sight. But there's two middles. There's a weight middle that you can check as you're shaving down one side. You put your finger on it, and it'll go on one side or the other, and that means you need to take more off the other side. And you can really fine tune each arm of the bow by doing the balancing trick. And if you can balance it on the well, I call it a middle mark But if you were to measure the whole thing and find exact middle as far as measurement wise, it it should match up with your perfect balance point, and then you know your bow's done. And from there you can I don't really sand it, but I can use coarse rocks to really smooth it out, and then I you can use antler and different things to shine it up. There's a thing, I don't know what it's called, but it's hollow, and we call it snake grass because it grows and it has little stripes on it like a snake or something. But you can flatten that out and use it like sandpaper. It works really well for polishing. Yep. Find two middles, the balance and the measurement middle, and you match them. Sometimes you get pretty scared. You're camping up in the woods, especially if you're by yourself. And I used to do that a lot before children and everything, you know. And I'll still go camping, you know, but I have to prepare differently, you know. Now that I'm an adult, not just a young 20 or 30 something, you know. But I still, being in Montana here, connected with nature, and soon as it warms up, I'm like everyone else. I want to go out to the woods or the lakes, you know. But sometimes I'll camp, spend the night up there, you know. If I feel safe, or you know where safety is, and a lot of times I know I used to get pretty scared at night when I do it. I do it for weeks at a time. I think it's good to try yourself. I think it develops you as a person. Try that with others. You kind of have to find just the right bone tool. I like it. I like one. The one I'm using there is one that fits in my hand like a rasp, and I can really feel the wood. Gather your bows like I'll mark a tree and ring it and get it ready for to cut down during the fall, because in the fall the pitch stops running, and if you can catch it then, your stick won't split when it dries out. And there's other tricks like putting pitch on the ends of your stick to keep it from splitting. But gather your materials in the fall. I like to do a lot of the work in winter, uh, the smaller stuff, and then the more messy stuff I like to do in the summer and spring. I like to do hides in winter. I heard a trick the other day. Um, One of our elders, famous for hides, would really go and do save up hides for winter time, because the freezing of the hide after you get it saturated a little, and then you leave it out and it freezes, it kind of helps break up the fibers to further help make it softer. So nature will help you. Everyone should learn how to do a little pressure flaking. I mean, there's great about lucking out and getting a broken chip like my grandpa story, but if you can find a nice flake to chip and flip pressure flaking, then you're golden, because you can sharpen it and resharpen. Yep, you just grab a piece of leather to protect your leg. You keep it kind of pinned down. You flick down, and it flakes on the other side, not the side you're looking at. It flakes on the back side. See? And then you want to kind of start getting your shape and see how it's getting thinner on that thick spot. So what I'll probably end up doing is thinning it out first, and then I'll come back and do the whole edge to sharpen it. And if I dull it from use or whatever, you just keep resharpening until it's dirt. You know, some of these flakes are too small to be used for even little bird arrows. But it looks like it's going to be a pretty good little knife. Not sure big enough for a spear. A little bit too much heft for an arrowhead. But once you know what you're looking for, every flake has some sort of purpose. Some flakes are long and skinny. I'll even use those. Some are kind of like short and scalpel shaped, and boy, I'll use them just like that, a scalpel. Except they're usually so thin you only get one cut. And I found out whether you're using a saw or if you're using stone tools, never go straight across the end you're going to put the point on. Always start a groove. Even like with a handsaw or anything, you kind of do the groove first on both sides, and then meet them in the middle. So here I'm using an arrowhead and creating the groove, and eventually I'll get near halfway through, come at it from the back side, and hopefully put that bone spear point in it. But I see there's a couple spear points I could use. This is buffalo sinew. I'm going to use the buffalo sinew to wrap up this. So that seat is an elk hide with dog bane in it, and dog bane has an outer bark that kind of is tough, that needs to be broken off. Well, not outer bark. The outer edge is the strings, and the inner part is the hard part. And I sit on them and use it like pillow, bedding, whatever, and it softens up that elk hide because it's not scraped yet, only smoked and kind of cured, and but it really roughs up the stuff I would scrape off in general. And then under that is a unfinished buffalo. So by me sitting on it, it really kind of softens it up over time, you know. And I like to put those dog bane sticks and different things in the flesh side, not the fur side, but the flesh side. And then you leave the fur side out, and it kind of roughs it up for you. So when you do need to, you could go and dry scrape it. A lot of tribes dry scraped. My tribe, well, Flathead specifically, they water scraped. And that means it was always wet when you're scraping with your buffalo rib. You're scraping the meat side and your hair side and making real good rawhide. And then from there you can make good parfleche or tons of string or anything. But if it wasn't very holy and was really a nice hide, you'd probably turn it to leather. yeah, once it's leather, it could be tons of things from there. You could make clothing and real useful items. But yeah, you get a hide and you scrape it down, and you can do it with hair on, and we used the animal. It has enough material to do that animal's hide, and I think Creator made it that way. Even a buffalo has the right amount of material to tan that buffalo's hide. And then there's extra. Gotta love that. Yeah, that spear. That was first thing. Get that done right away. Set up camp. Find the water source. Set up camp. Start working on your spear. Alright, so we got the spear. It's done. Buffalo bone tip. Nice and thick. Wolf fur. Black bear fur. And not just for decoration, but it really holds keeps this from getting slickery if you have to defend yourself while you're in nature and you want something to grab really quick. And have a get back stick, I call it a get back stick. But you could use it for hunting. And usually you don't hold these, or you don't throw these. It's rounded at the end so you can hold on to it and have pressure, you know. Two places, you hold it in two places. So making an awl, I need flakes. I need a little flake. There's a good awl. I'm trying to make something like this with the holes in there. And to make the holes, I kind of wanted to see what kind of rock flakes I have that are tiny enough. Little. Let's see. I think I like this one. See if we will fit. Make rough flake. And where's my suppose I could start it first. A bow drill. But I'm actually gonna use it for the bow drill. That little driftwood piece by the rocks, that's the plate where it would build the coal up and drop through the V through to the bottom, and that would hold the cherry to start your fire. But I have a larger one for fire starting. So the importance of using every little scrap piece of your buffalo is it goes along with the respect of the animal. Even your scrap fur leftovers, you make your spear point and you have your scrap pieces or whatever, and you can sharpen those and turn those into your smaller tools. Every part of the animal is usable for something, medicines to tools, and that's with most animals. And so just to give you an idea of the drilling of the hole, I'm going to try to new rock flake everything. I'm going to try to hold it steady. Oh, already slipping. There we go. So I'm going to get that in there. So I'll pull it tighter. Can't see it. That plate there, I see. Drilling that on is the start of a fire plate for the bigger bow drill. There we go. Oh, did it break? Well, that's better. I don't want this to slip out. There we go, that falls apart. Let's get a little better groove on the rock flakes. There we go. There we go. Every part of the animal. And even your little rocks, little flakes that you can't make arrowheads out of. Here I just took an unusable flake and flaked it even smaller. And now I'm gonna attempt a bow drill. There we go. Easy as it goes. Just take your time. It'll eventually go through. Don't try to add pressure. It'll do its own thing. As I add pressure. But you can drill holes. Just even tiny holes, bigger holes with a bigger bow drill. It's not a hard thing to do in nature. Should I check it? I can't even see. I would just keep going until I hit wood usually, but yep, every scrap piece even is usable for something. Until it's dirt. The bone turns to dirt eventually. The antler. Even your scrap pieces of rawhide and leather, that just turns to dirt because it's so little. But even that, if you save those, you can turn into glue. And use that glue for everything. I like pitch glue, though. You take pitch and charcoal. Once you have enough pitch and charcoal, you can really almost all the way through. Anyways, you want to use everything you can get your hands on. You get the idea? I was able to gather some rocks and go find neat things, antlers. This is a black bear jawbone. I made a little sheath, that's deer hide. I wrapped it in rawhide. I cut rawhide into a string. You start on the edge and go to a circle. and wrapped it all up and glued it in there. Hide glue. And then this you can use to get the skin off the animal. You can use it for everything, but these are my knives. I pack with me. Goes in my backpack. This is kind of a longer handle for self-defense. My Uncle Joe carved. And then this is a nice chert tip, and you can use this for the starting of the processing animal and for self-defense, being that it has a longer reach. And then this is a more of a fleshing knife also, but you can see you can sharpen these up pretty good. But I like to pack all this stuff together with me. This is buffalo sinew. These are my pocket knives, more realistic of my tool pocket knives. The other ones have specific uses, but these are everyday everything. You just keep resharpening your edge, and you can even clean up your little how you hold it and stuff. And this obvious, kind of so you can, sticks are round, you know. Anyways, oh, there's a spider. There's a boss there. We don't want to close up a spider. Sinew. That's pitch and birch bark fire. This is my Indian match. So I'll show you how this goes together. This is an elk par flesh. It's an elk button. And just twist it and roll it. And then this is the stuff I like to keep. This is my extra furs. I put it on my bows and stuff. Put, you know, around your handles, or on a spear like this, you want to keep it at the tip to keep the rest of it from getting slickery. And in my little backpack here, there's the straps. You can use it for getting fish and minnows and stuff. It has my extra moccasins, my fur. It's got my hatchet in it. Let's see. That's my hatchet. Always nice to pack a hatchet. This is my root digging tool. Kind of a start for your shovel too. Pretty much pulls the dirt right up. Fits right in like that. And this slides right in there. And as you can see, you can tie stuff to it still. I'm missing something. Here we go. Missing my extra leather. Always keep my extra leather down in the bottom, tucked away somewhere. And even the extra, this used to be a moccasin that came out a little off, so turned it into a bag. And the lid's too big, see, so I can even use that for string. It's good to pack with you, plus it's a little bag for carrying stuff back into camp. And you can just slide this right in there, and it rests on that second poop right here. And then keep the weight back as far as you can, and that'll get you to your mountain streams, and you'll have all your tools, extra moccasins. That's the gist of it. So with the buffalo bones, you can use a lot of the bones for tools. I like. Here's a knife, buffalo bone knife. Here's a smaller one. This might be from an elk, but I didn't want to use my knife. But here's a buffalo bone rib, sharpened so I can use it for wet scraping. Pull down on the hide while it's wet. But often I'll just do this trick right here. See how I have on this bunch of rocks and tools. I never put this stuff away. Bunch of rocks and tools and little things I'm working on, and I'll fold it over and just pack it up, you know, for the night, put weight on it, and that softens it eventually. And it starts out like this, and like with this stuff, you just it's so big to work all at once, wet scraping. Like with your buffalo hide, it's easier to cut off the piece you want for the looks of it, and you turn that stuff, I don't know if you can see, turn that stuff soft inside there. And then once you get your own soft piece, you know, it's easier to work this big of a piece than the whole buffalo, especially by yourself. A long time ago, you would have a team of ladies that would have it done in a day, because and often they would scrape hair side and meat side. Alright, I'm gonna move my awls and my sandpaper. It's my sandpaper rock finishing work for my bow. And this is my bow. Oops. Right here, I'm still almost there, but you can see it's already a bow pretty much. Just got a little more sanding to do. I got the notches ready. Gotta notch them. And here's the string. Got the string ready. Here, I'll show you this over here. This is grease. That's fat. I'm gonna rub that all over that string. Get it warm in the fire pit and grease that rawhide string. Braided rawhide string, greased up real good. And then, so what I do with my hides, learning tips and tricks, is I sit on my hides, and eventually when I'm ready to work it, they're already halfway soft. And sometimes I'll put my dog bane in there, because like I'll pull a piece out and clean up the bark real quick. Clean up the bark out of it, and then once all that stuff's out, I'll hold it, twist it, and wrap it. And I'm twisting it this way with each one, and then wrapping both of them. And you can make some pretty quick string once it's all, I don't know if you can see that, even though it's all barky. But I'm going to untwist it, because I can actually make string with this piece and keep adding to it, and just keep pulling all this barky stuff off. Actually, the fibers are the bark. But once it's, you can sleep on here, and you can use this for your pillows. Here's my hides. You can roll it up, but I like this little chair, and it softens your hides before you get to it, you know. And then when you get to a certain spot, you're just gonna have to scrape them. And like these little deer hides, you can totally just use small scrapers like this. And buffalo or rib are always better to use. You see that stuff coming off? You're going to want to do that for the whole thing. Once it's all done, once the whole inside's done, like this, to save time, I'll soak this. Once that's done, I'll soak this hair side and then do the same to the hair side. And it's a little messier than the Bitterroot Salish do it, because they would more have a buffalo rib, soak this, and then put it up on a pole against a tree and wet scrape it, and if it starts getting dry, they would re-soak it. But you can see the process I do when you're by yourself, when you don't have a team. It really starts your softening up of all your hides. And like I said, you can cut a piece off that you like. And don't use scissors, just cut from the backside. Otherwise you get a really cropped fur. So everything I learned to just get rid of modern tools, because it's better if you have the right tools out of this stuff. And like I was saying before, a lot of this was able to be done through Montana Arts Council, because there's a lot of traveling to the areas that have the items you need, and a lot of things you have to look for, hunt for, find. This is my wife's aunt's hide I'm working on right here, and I'm just gonna do it myself because the ladies that do our hides in our tribe are pretty busy in the summertime, so I'm just gonna do it for myself. I think it'll be appreciated though, because no metal will touch this hide, and I think that makes it special, you know. And it teaches us, I may have said before, our respect for nature. And the finished product with the hides and the like on this club here and that shield, this finished elk hide turned into leather for my bolas, all cleaned up. And if it wasn't cleaned and smoked, bugs would be on it, mice would want it, raccoons and bears would come in. But once you get it all done and clean, it doesn't become food anymore. It becomes clothing. It becomes items you can use. Like even this, before I got it scraped, I smoked it once so I could have it sitting around in cottonwood. I smoked it, and that way it's not food smelling still. I'll have bears in my little camp here. So, you know, it's a precautionary, but it's also just like when you live with nature instead of against it, you develop a respect, and you don't want to fight off bears or grizzlies or whatever every second, raccoons, even mice. So you just keep your mess clean, and you know, work your area all in one spot. Ooh, I should collect all this. See, all this I could collect. Now I'm gonna have to burn it, but I have a hide here for collecting this kind of stuff because I can make glue out of it. And boy, wouldn't that be neat if my wife's auntie had a jug of Elmer's glue. I jokes. No, that's what they make. And all this stuff is already powdered up, so it's even better. When you boil it up for a few hours, it turns into this goop, and you can make glue out of it. But people need to start learning to respect instead of trying to fight animals all the time. Learn how to live with them. There's always a way. There's always a way to where you're at, to live with nature. You take care of the water and the land and the animals, and they take care of you. And it doesn't take a generation or two living in Montana, I know, before they develop the same thing that the Ridder Salish had, that respect for nature and the want to protect it. And so we need to teach others how to use it correctly, and how to use every little bit of it. Even what you think is waste isn't. Everything is usable. Boy, I have to burn all that other stuff up, and I should have remembered my own lesson. Because that's perfect for glue, that stuff. It's really already fuzzed up. Otherwise, you're using all your leftover ends and pieces from your projects, and your stuff is bigger. A little bit. Oh, it's too windy. I'm gonna have to put this down. It's too windy. Yep. Dog bane. Toughest fiber in the world. Indian hemp, they call it. You can gather it along roads and along fields and stuff. But it didn't start out like this. It's kind of a reed plant with this stuff on its bark. And it kind of started, so you wiggle it, it pops those little guys out. Try to get all the sticks, because then you can start making string by, well, I'll show you really quick, but I'll have to undo it, because I'm going to make it to fit my, has to be longer so it fits my fire bow drill set. This will be the bow. We'll make a string out of it. And then we'll wrap this peg around it, and that'll spin it. But right now, this started out, you can make a string, twist away like that, and then wrap opposite. So I'm twisting this way and then wrapping opposite. Oh, look, a little popped out. But I'll do that to a longer string and make a fire drill set. But I use it to sit on. It starts out, here's some I got put aside with even more bark. And what I'll do is kind of shake it, and because all the fibers are in a row from the plant, you can kind of see it wants to, see how it wants to go back to its original shape. Anyways, I'll take that, I'll bend it in half and kind of beat it up first. This is the plate for the fire bow drill, see? That'll go in there and spin. But that'll make string first. And you can use leather string, but if I make a bunch of this right now, it lasts, and you can get it. It can work while it's wet without stretching and stuff. It kind of gets tighter when it's wet. I'm not tighter, but it grabs better. Otherwise, I save all my bigger pieces. Get it beat up, and then I'll show you how I got to that after I beat it up. Just makes it that a little much easier every time. Extra. Kind of even it out. This is called twining. And you can twine leather or any other kind of string you need that twist and wrap. See, some of these are just ready to fall out. Go along the whole length of it, break the fibers up even more. On the ends are connected. I'll try to save them as much of the fire starter stuff. You can use these fibers for char cloth also. The inner bark of trees you can often get fiber. But this dog bane is something that you can use right now. It's a good project too, the string on a hot day. Get out of the sun and do something that doesn't burn too many calories. And save the getting firewood and the tracking and scouting and all the stuff you need to do. Kind of want to do it in the mornings and the evenings when it's more cool. And in the evenings you never want to go too far from camp. In the mornings you can though. There's always little lessons to learn that camping in groups especially. I have too much. And when I get down here, I'll add to it. Or strings you can make as a dog bane. I think the other name is Indian hemp, but it grows along roadways and it's kind of a dry, stocky looking bush. Yeah, you can take this, and once you make string, you can make solly bags, which is a type of twined bag, I guess. Yeah, it's called twining. Make one side thicker and one side thinner. And you always can keep adding till that whole thing's a rope. Well, you can make two of those strings and then twine those two strings into little rope. Just twist it in. See where I added. And I always add as it gets thinner and stagger, don't add at the same time. little thin down here. If you do want to add all at once at one same time, you can do this, but this isn't really like adding, this is more like thickening your string so it's thinner right here. I'm going to lay it along and then twist it in. Also a good trick to know. See how anything I missed pops out? That's the basics of string making. And then what I'll do, once this feels long enough, I'm going to back up and try to add some more. And line up my fibers evenly. See, I try to even out the fluff even first, so it's the right size. And where it's too thin, I'm going to save that in case one side's really short. There. Add. A little bit on that side, a little bit on this side. I'm reading it as I go. I'm not going to do it once. See? Try to even this out. And you can keep going all day till it's, and you can make a rope, or you can make string, and it's really strong. Dog bane. Try to stretch it. There we go. Alright guys, let's see how much longer I gotta go. I need to fix my watch. Show you my notcher. Gotta notch everything. Knife handles, hand tools. It's always nice to find a slightly edged rock too. Trying to get rid of any surfaces. Let's see. don't think it's long enough, but I want to see how much more I need. So I'll pretend to tie it off. Pretend to tie it right there. What? Tie. So I'm inventing a way here to see the diameter. So I'm just going to tie this string to that really quick. All because of no clamps or nothing like that, so you kind of invent. But it looks like it needs to be that much longer. See that? I just forced it. So what we need is about, I would say that much longer. First you line it all up in a nice little row. Keep it even as you can. A lot of this messy, hairy stuff can be lined up too if you just start pulling on it. Where it's thinner, just add that end. Then to get it started, you gotta pre-roll it. And it pops all those big things out. And it gives me a sense of the diameter, if it gets thinner down here or thicker up here. So first you roll it. Oh, I'm doing it as I go. You're not supposed to do this as you go. You're supposed to roll it first. See that? Pops them right out. I made it 2 inches so far already. Oh, it was fast. Look at that. 3 inches maybe. Meaning it takes kind of a long time and is tedious. But the better work you do, the better the string. And culturally, you try to go as best as you can, as fast as you can. And it balances each other out when you're trying to do your best, but trying to be doing it in a timely manner. You say, and the thinking helps you focus on the one project at a time. More meditative, you know. Almost halfway, then we can add it. Boy, even when you get this much more to add, because it'll be only this much, you just feel great. You're like, oh, that should do it. But you know, people who might not be hunting or not into berry picking, elderly or disabled, heck, in Indian culture, this might be someone's thing they do, their tick. Well, you wouldn't know it till you put some dog bane in front of them. And everybody has a purpose and a use. And people who, I imagine myself getting elderly and just having a good time sitting around peeling bitterroot or cleaning up dog bane, feeling just useful, because them kids, they need that string for their fire kit, you know. A lot of good stuff to pass on, all from nature, all used with respect in the gathering and in the whole process is all about respecting the land, the water, the animals, and learning about it. There's a neat way tribal people, at least my tribe, thinks. So like, you know how there's plants that grow in damaged land, right? And I think I can say this because it's a more modern plant. So we have this thinking, we're like, well, if the land gets damaged on the edges, on the outside, like its skin, then maybe that plant that grows there might help our skin. And sure enough, that's how they figured out plantain works. We call it bear ear. But you really have to pay attention to the plant or the animal and respect it, learn its ways, and then it can become usable to you. And you only take what you need, drilled into our culture. Only take what you need, they always would say that. Leave some for next year, you'd get teased if you're over picking. Don't you want any next year? Anyway, see how that got thinner right there? I'm going to back all the way up to that stick. And you can do this with yarn. Give it a try. There you go. I added too late. It's okay. Add it to this. That seems pretty even and cool. I need less. This plant here, it grows where the land is pretty tough on the edges, and it soaks up the water and is kind of hollow, and its fibers are really tough. How about cattail? Cattail cleans the marshy goopity goop, and it'll help you. And if you eat it, its roots, or the shoots is what I eat. They taste good. But food used to be our medicine and not just food. Alright. Let's have a break. And so, oh, I'm almost done. Try to get all this memory. See how it turns white. And then this log, this is driftwood from Flathead Lake. See how it's smooth? And it gives me a surface to scrape. And then when it's wet, when I soak this to get it wet, I'll lean that up against a tree or make a little tripod, and I can scrape the hair off from either this side or come from it like this side and scrape the hair off. Either way, I might just do it sitting. But this is one of the best finds. Smooth piece of driftwood. And it'll last a long time. Try to get all of this all the way to the edges. It takes time, and I might need time to soak this and rewrap it. But that's why you just have your stick always ready. And once it gets loose from doing half a hide, I can soak it for half an hour to an hour, retie it tight, let it dry for half an hour, and then it won't knock around like that. But right now, I don't find it cutting the hide either. I'm using a crease in the wood naturally to get a hard spot on the edge. About halfway done. Then we soak it. Fire. When we'd camp in big groups, we'd face all our teepees towards the center fire. Called it inclusive. And that's what the language school is called down there. But as every person that would wake up in the morning, they could go to that one fire and get a coal, start their campfire, start their day. One fire is like one family. Inclusive. You have to use push wood when don't bring axes or saws. You have to go and gather and break what you can get, bring it back to camp, burn it in half. Now you got two pieces of push wood, they call it. There's my hole, got it dug. Looks good, looks like it needs to be a little flatter, so I'm putting that rock in there to create kind of So it's not, there's a rock already in it, but I'm trying to create a hard surface for the bottom of the hide to go in it. And those are my cooking rocks. They're all gathered in specific places, hot sun fields and stuff, and I don't gather rocks from rivers or streams. It'll crack and split. But these ones, they'll get real hot and hold the heat a long time without breaking. And I reuse them. I still use it for using those. That piece of rawhide, that there's my pot. Gotta have your pots, and my pan is a rock. I'll fry something right on a flat rock and make a little stove top out of a flat rock and fry stuff right on it. Throw the coals under it and stuff. But this is how you do boil water. This is my seashell, and in there I have rendered fat. So we're gonna bring it over here, quickly warm it up just by setting it next to the fire. And then I'm gonna rub some of this fat on this hide, get it real greasy, and I'm gonna put it in this hole right here. Heat up those rocks, put them in there. So right now this is just getting warm enough because it's so cold out. Got my pemmican stuff right there. But it's almost dinner time. There, see it getting clear in there a little bit. That's all we need, is just a little bit. Yeah. Try not to get ashes in it. And then we're gonna grab it, dump out the water. I kind of soaked it a little bit, but not too much. Now I'm gonna add some hot grease. Rub it around in there. Dump a little bit more if I can. There we go. So, put that stuff right in there. So, drip. Wipe it all around. Gonna make some soup. I have pemmican ready in my bag. This will be a pretty good soup. Alright, get that grease all around in there. That right in there. Push it right down. There we go. And I'll let that dry. Get my shell away from the fire. There we go. Now I'm gonna grab some of these rocks. Put them right there. get your water after your fire is built and your rocks are in it. You start putting your water right in your hole. I'm gonna make 4 cups. Which isn't a lot of water. A hot rock, you'll see, turns it to boiling right now. Yep. They have a story. They say, well, when I was young, we were so poor, all we had to eat was stone soup. And nobody knows where that phrase came from. Well, now you guys know. Eating stone soup. The more you can put in it, well, then it's not stone soup anymore. You got a wild onion, throw it in there. Piece of meat, throw it in there. What I'm making here, though, is a delicacy. The pemmican is made from the sarvis berries, dried deer meat, and rendered down fat. Probably from that shell. That shell's a pretty important, big deal to me because it's not from here. It's a trade material a long time ago. Would have been hard to get. And see, I keep my pemmican in a parfleche, and it's smoked, so the whole thing is dried and smoked, and that way stuff doesn't want to get into it. Boy, it stained my hands, those berries. Yep. And you only need about a palm size, like I grabbed right there. That's about all you need, and that's a meal for one person. And it doesn't look like it, but it'll get you really full. The dried meat expands, and I guess so with the dried berries. Y stick. Gotta have a Y stick. You can't. Mainly for this purpose right here. Knock the ashes, don't blow on the rocks. Shouldn't try to blow on them because it could split. But a little ash isn't too bad. Let the wind do it. That oil on the top is that grease that we put in there. The little pieces are mostly ashes. Any real debris will sink to the bottom and you won't scoop it up anyway. After it simmers down from boiling, the heavier debris sinks to the bottom. see how that rock didn't really go. The whole pot is now steaming. Those 6 rocks. Good. I have 7 rocks and I'll try to put them all in there. You know, that way it really boils any bacteria or any bad things. Yep, that's crazy life. Looks to me like I was in a rush and there's a little bit of ashes on there. But I think people need to know how to boil water without anything. It helped me in my life. And if not anything, it self-assurance. So we're gonna get out some of the ash. See how the ash is on top? You can scoop the ashes off the top. And the sediment sinks to the bottom. You could eat that stone soup right now. It has enzymes from the hide, minerals from the rocks, fat from greasing your hide. That might keep a person alive right there. Alright. Let's go look over here. But if you have something to put in it, now's the time. Not that much. Yeah, just the palm size. Hungry. Meet my little friend here. Nice and clear. Bowling tool. Good. Kind of have to let it sit 3 minutes, just like tea or anything. You can eat a handful of that pemmican right now. That stuff I'm using there is a couple years old, but I still dig into it. Like, it's kind of a you have a taste for sometimes once you've had it. I gotta let it cool. Let this cool. I'll set a rug right here to let it cool. It's pretty good. It was good. I would feed my children, my family that any day, any way you can make it. Stove, frying pan, pot, or this way. I think you could really get some good food going. Well, in this one it's deer rib fat that I rendered down into just the clear, and then saved it in a shell. And then the hide, you seen me wipe grease on it to keep it kind of waterproof. But the pemmican has the same grease in it, and it's mixed with dried meat, deer dried meat, and it has sarvice berries in it. And you don't want to really add much else to your pemmican to keep it pure and it lasts longer. The stuff I just cooked was probably a few years old, but it's still good and will be good for quite a while, as long as I keep it put away in a dry, cool place. It's storable, packable, it's really light, and it makes probably the best cup of soup ever. And you can tell your body just wants it. Yeah, you can add roots. I was gonna bring bitterroot to try bitterroot with it, and the bitterroot I think would have took too long. It would have still just kind of floated on top. So it was better just to dump it right in there and show how fast everything heats with that heating your rock technique. And as soon as I poured the water in, it had already swelled the meat up, and the dry, because it's powdered, so it just whew, instantly, and then you stir it up like a tea or something, and you drink the particles, and it tastes really good. It's a better broth than you could ever buy. These mountains, they take care of us, keep us from outside dangers a lot. They're more than just beauty. It's a way of life. This can save a life. Water is life. Then the plants and the animals, and I'll help you.